Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here, even virtually, with all of you. And I'm sad to not be able to be there in person. And I hope the conference is off to a great start. I think gender inclusion and having a conversation about ethical AI and building strong, inclusive AI products is an incredibly important conversation. And I'm excited to be here to be a part of it. So my name is Tulsee. I lead the product team at Google for Gemini. Gemini is our foundational large language model. We have been building this model for the past few years. You can experience it if you have not already as AI overviews in Google search, the box at the top that provides an answer. If you have not tried gemini.google.com, I highly encourage using the Gemini app. And many other experiences at Google are being powered by Gemini. And before I led the product team for Gemini, I led the responsible AI product team across Google for about 5 years. And during this time, I worked across our products, whether that be search or YouTube or Gmail or Translate, to work to make sure that our products are inclusive, safe, and responsible. And so today, I'll share a little bit of my learnings and journey, I guess, in building for everyone. This image here is from Bridgerton season 2, which came out a couple of years ago. And I don't know if everyone in this room has seen Bridgerton season 2. If you've not, it is a fun season. I highly recommend it. But why is it here? Well, as a South Asian woman who has always loved a good love story, I've often seen myself in content, in Bollywood or in cinema outside of the Western cinema that I have also grown up watching as a woman who grew up in the United States. But to see someone who looks like me represented on screen in mainstream American content, being able to go to work or to friends in California and be able to have a conversation about a show that is in the mainstream dialogue, and to see rituals that I've grown up with, that I see in content from India, be represented and be a natural part of the story. That's what representation and inclusion is all about. Ultimately, it is about feeling seen. And inclusion manifests itself in every part and every moment of our lives. Starting with another story. In elementary school, I began taking tennis lessons, and they were rough. As much as I would swing the forehand with my right arm, I just couldn't meet the ball. If I managed, luckily, to make contact with the ball, I couldn't get it over the net. But here's the thing, I'm left-handed. When I play tennis, my forehand should be with my left arm over the net. But in a class full of students where we were never taught that there might be a way that was different from the average. Now, this is ideally the part of the story where I tell you that I became a great tennis player because I started playing with my left hand. Unfortunately, my hand-eye coordination still leaves something to be desired, but now I can at least hit the ball over the net every so often. Now, you might ask, one, why do I share both this example and the Bridgerton one? And also, what does this have to do with gender inclusion? Well, one is an example of feeling seen as a South Asian woman. One is an example of being excluded for being left-handed, both innocuous, both personal to me, and both different aspects of who I am, and both examples of how inclusion manifests and matters in every part of our lives. When we talk about gender inclusion, it is no different. It is a part of how we build and develop products, how we build and develop experiences that make every individual feel seen. And of course, it's critical that when we build and design our products, our technology, our AI, we do so such that it works for every single user. And that could be ensuring diverse creator voices succeed on YouTube and our recommendations algorithms, that any language, any accent, any writing style can access information through Gemini, and any face can successfully and safely unlock their phone. So what does it actually look like to drive product inclusion work? Let's talk about an example on search. To build an inclusive experience requires recognizing that different users may have different needs and intents from searching, and that the web has a lot of content that may not always be relevant and can actually sometimes be shocking or hurtful, and requires intentional development to address that. For example, on search, the real bread and butter of the work is understanding what a user is looking for when they say something on search. So just like feeling seen is such an important part of representation, so is reducing exposure to harmful types of misrepresentation that may exist on the web. In Google search, part of making sure you can find helpful results is also making sure you don't find ones that you're not looking for, especially in the context of gender inclusion if they perpetuate negative stereotypes or bias. We know that this is a challenge that can disproportionately impact women and communities of color. So we take it very seriously and continue to work hard to help people steer clear of this kind of shocking content. So what do I mean by that? Well, queries can have many different interpretations based on where you are, what language you speak, and whether it's related to a recent event. Even words can have different meanings. So let's say you typed in the word MOLE. Are you looking for mole, like the animal? Are you looking for dermatological information about a mole? Or do you want some delicious mole recipes? And as it relates to product inclusion, what if terms that are neutral or innocuous are referenced in an explicit or sexual context? Then, if we don't understand the meaning behind your query, we might match your search to that explicit content, and that can dominate the search results and perpetuate shocking content that is problematic for users to see. So one of the things that we have done on search is leverage AI to actually drive improvement in seeing explicit content for underrepresented communities. One example is improving experiences for queries like Latina yoga instructor. So it's important that when you type in something like Latina yoga instructor, you see results of maybe yoga instructors in the area, famous Latina yoga instructors, not explicit, shocking content. And so to make sure that the product is safe and inclusive for all individuals, but especially in this context, women and underrepresented communities, using a new machine learning advancement, we actually ensured that we understood the meaning of these queries independent of the web results. And then we're actually demoting and reducing problematic queries. And in the process, we improved the overall experience for every user who searches, including for more general queries like college dorm party. So the interesting thing here is one, making improvements that improve things for, let's say, women actually tend to improve the experience for everyone. And this also means the second thing, that every time we make these changes, they're part of a larger and more inclusive journey. One where we can continue to invest in how products like search work and how we continue to build for a broader audience. I want to spend the next few minutes talking about 3 lessons I've learned in building inclusive AI products. The first is every decision is an opportunity. It starts with your everyday decisions. The questions you have to ask yourself when you're building and designing a product is, what are the assumptions behind the decision that I'm making? And who else? The thing is that there's a million little decisions that are being made when you design a product. And it is easy often to say, well, the model is going to do this, or we're going to look at a particular metric. But how you design that metric, how you actually hold the model accountable, influences the actual final decision. Our product then is a reflection of the choices we make throughout that product development process. And sometimes even the small choices, the obvious or the innocuous ones, can lead to major differences in the experience of the user. You may not have seen this card before, but the woman on the left, her name is Shirley. She's a Kodak model and well known across anyone who worked with Kodak printers. Shirley cards, as they became known, were used to calibrate color. So in the 1950s, when Kodak first introduced color cameras, they actually started using this Shirley card to decide and make sure that the camera was actually calibrated well to the colors that it was looking at. And so the reason the Shirley card created it was the idea was to create something simple, something that was an MVP to be able to test and validate the camera. And this kind of seemed to work. But it wasn't until the 1990s when chocolatiers and wood manufacturers complained that the calibration of the cameras was not adequately detecting darker tones, did camera creators realize that the Shirley calibration cards were not actually testing whether the cameras were well calibrated to darker skin tones. And so in the 1990s, you see a new type of calibration card created that actually captures a diversity of skin tones. Camera calibration has been a problem for years in the industry. The chemicals coating film often aren't adequate. Sorry, one second. My camera was doing something weird, but let me go back. All right, sorry about that. The chemicals coating the film simply weren't adequate enough to capture a diversity of darker skin tones. And this actually leads to lighting challenges or ashen-looking facial skin colors, just issues in these areas. And so why do I bring this example up when it's not an AI example and it's an example of a camera? Well, it's an example of a case where a seemingly simple decision, let's create an MVP of an image that can actually test the colors, let's put in a red and a blue and a yellow, can actually lead to significantly different results. And in AI, this can actually be perpetuated at every part of the pipeline. Here you see kind of a basic ML pipeline, and this actually doesn't even account for how Gen AI might be used today, but it accounts for kind of the standard ML pipeline of development. So you have data collection, you have labeling of data, training of the model, maybe filtering, ranking, aggregating, users see an effect, and then user behavior informs further data collection. And in every single part of this process, you can intersect with human bias. For example, where did you collect the data from? Who labeled that data and what biases do they have? What metrics did you choose to optimize for when you were training? What did users see and how did they respond to the data? And far more often than not, these various human biases intersect with one another and lead to downstream biases that we see in our products today. And so it's incredibly important to think through each and every one of the decisions that you make and ask yourself, how might this decision affect every population? How might it affect different populations differently? And how do I make sure I'm testing for those pieces? The second lesson, though, that I've learned, and this actually builds on this first conversation, is design for and with. One of the key notes here is that you don't actually have to have all of the answers. And in fact, many times the strength of a strong team is to bring together voices internally and externally, and to recognize that you might actually miss some of these human biases because of your own biases. So one of the questions, building on the Shirley example I gave earlier, is how do we make camera products inclusive of all skin tones? And so one of the things that we did to actually drive this project forward is realize that we weren't camera experts and didn't necessarily have the understanding of how different skin tones may manifest differently in different camera settings. So we actually brought in expertise. Our teams worked directly with a range of IMAS experts who were celebrated for their beautiful and accurate imagery of people of color. And together, we built a more equitable camera. Because with those experts, the team was actually able to take a number of pictures and identify ways in which camera products may not effectively tune or support color. And so, for example, here's an example where different camera settings can make the final image look ashy instead of look rich and powerful. And so with the feedback from working with these experts, the team was actually able to make changes to specifically change approaches to auto exposure and auto white balance to create natural, more beautiful portraits of skin. In this case, it was not about removing a bias, but about actually understanding the unique needs of a community and building for that community. And I encourage, whether you are thinking about skin tones or whether you're thinking about gender, understanding systemic biases and then building products to directly address them in meaningful ways to solve real needs for individuals. The last one I will say is don't underestimate your own voice. I think every single one of us, in whichever field you're in, whether it is academia, whether it is at a tech company, whether it is at a startup, whether you're a product manager, whether you're a researcher, whether you're an engineer, don't underestimate the power of your own voice. I started my journey in inclusive AI development as a PM for recommendations on YouTube. This was in 2016. And I heard concerns from creator communities about how YouTube was working for them. So I started a proactive effort at YouTube to understand and improve the ways our systems work for a diversity of creators. And it was amazing because I worked with leadership who were excited about the idea when I pitched it. And so one part of this is find champions who are willing to give you and the idea and the problem statement a platform. And when you find this platform, you can work with leadership who wants to help you build that platform. And now this is an active part of YouTube's development process, directly in partnership with creators, ensuring that we are building consistently for all users. And now building up that momentum across Google meant continue to build and make sure that we're building products that work for every user. And ultimately, that's why you are where you are, your perspective. Your voice has power. Find it, own it, share it. Find the champions around you who value your voice and your opinion and give you the platform to share your thoughts and ideas, but also make sure that you're hearing the voices of others. Make sure that the experiences you are creating are balanced and intentional. Often in thinking about one community, we can ignore others or create experiences that fail to acknowledge the full context. Constantly think through, what feedback do you need? Whose perspective do you need? And how can your perspective fit into that fold? And that can give you the platform to share your thoughts and ideas. Meet people where they are, build for everyone, but don't underestimate the value that you bring to an organization. I think that is super critical. And I've seen for me over the last 8 years, how I've been able to use my voice to build strong, powerful experiences for every user. So 3 things to remember when building for everyone. 1, every decision you make is an opportunity. 2, design for and with. And 3, your voice and perspective are unique and bring their own value. Don't underestimate that. Use that, share that. And I hope you all continue to do that throughout this conference, to share ideas, to think through and to build on how we can make the world more gender inclusive through the products that we build and through the AI that we design. Thank you all so much. Have a great conference. And I'm so excited to have been able to be here. Thank you.